Hi guys, it's MJ, and in this video I want to talk about trusts. Now, trust, like a lot of things in finance, is a contract between various parties. But what makes a trust a little bit unique is the type of parties involved. So what I want to do to start the discussion is just start with the various parties involved in setting up a trust. First off, you have someone known as a settlor. Okay, the settlor, also sometimes known as the grantor, but basically this is the person who gives assets to the trust. So gives assets to the trust. Sometimes it could be, say, a parent. If we're setting up a trust for a child, the parent could say, give some assets to the trust. So they say, we're going to hold the house in a trust. Then we have another party known as the protector or the trustee. So the protector or trustee, they're the person who has to give consent before anything can happen, before any action can be taken place or something like that. So they give consent for action. Don't be too concerned about what their actual names are. Depending on what country you are, there will be different terms. But essentially, you have one party who's giving the assets. You have another party who looks after the assets or manages them. And then you have a third party, which is the one you actually want to be, and that is known as the beneficiary. The person who, receives the distribution of the assets. Receives distribution, and this person is known as the beneficiary. And yeah, like I said, that's basically what a trust is. It's a contract. A lot of things in finance, whether it be shares or bonds, all these things, they all are contracts, and they're a contract between various parties. In this case, instead of having an investor and a manager, or a lender and the person who borrows the money, we have these three individuals, all three parties. It can be groups. I mean, it could be a bunch of children as beneficiaries, could be a group of people as the trustees or the protectors. But essentially, a trust is a contract between parties. And the idea is that there is some sort of asset at play. So what you have in your contract is you'll have, the terms of the contract. So the terms of the contract or terms of the trust will determine what asset is, is the trust holding, who the settlor is, who the protector is, who the beneficiary is, and there's a whole bunch of rules and regulations around what you can have in your trust and what you can't. Some rules are like the beneficiary has to already be born, so you can't say, I'm going to be leaving my house to my future grandchildren if you don't have any grandchildren yet or they haven't been born. But this very much depends on where you're living. Depending on what country you're in, they will have different rules and regulations around what you can and cannot say in the terms of the trust. We can also go into the types of trusts. The types of trusts, there are lots. If you are interested in the types, check out Wikipedia. They do have like the A to Z of all the various different trusts that you can get. Again, depending on what country you're in, that will determine the various different trusts that are available for you to set up. So now, why do people make a trust? Why do they go through this administrative burden of creating this contract between parties? And that's what I want to do for the rest of this video, is go through 10 purposes or 10 reasons for creating a trust. So let's go with our 10 reasons. And then after that, you should have a good understanding. We can end the video. Because, the three things I think that make up a trust are the intention. Maybe let me write this down here. It's intention, which we're going to look at now, the 10 reasons. The subject matter, and the objects. Subject matter is like the terms of the trustee, and the objects are the assets. But let's look at the intentions. That's what I find the most interesting. So the 10 reasons. Number 1 is privacy. Okay, unlike, say, a public company where we see the word public, they have to disclose their financials, they have to say, what they're doing, all that type of stuff. In some territories, trusts have a level of privacy. They can do things or manage assets in a way that does not need to be disclosed to the public. And some people like to be private or like to keep secrets. And that's one of the reasons for creating a trust. The other reason is quite a funny one, but it's for spendthrift children. So let's say I am a very rich and successful person, but I know that my daughter just loves shopping. She just loves buying every single shoe that comes on the market. She's got a big room of shoes. And I know that when I die, or even now, if I gave her unlimited access to my money, she's going to go ballistic. What I can do is I can create a trust. So I give all the assets, all my wealth to this trust, but then I set up a trustee to say that, okay, what we're going to do is we're only going to give her $1 million for shopping a month. We're going to limit the amount of money that we give her a month so that she doesn't go and blow it all in one go. So it is a way to be a bit of a spendthrift. You hear a lot of jokes. Oh, he's a trust fund baby. It's a kid who doesn't have to go to college and spends his life on a yacht, drinking cocktails and, partying with girls. That's what some trusts are set up for, to protect children who aren't, financially sophisticated enough to deal with so much money. It might be a term, say, that once they reach age 21, they get full control or some sort of thing. It also is used in wills and estate planning. So normally when somebody dies, their money gets turned into some sort of trust where you have some beneficiaries and people can do all that type of stuff. But it might be beneficial to set up a trust before you die, because in some countries, we have something known as a death tax. So once you die, you have to spend a lot of money to the government because you've died. I mean, it's a completely bogus, stupid tax. I mean, like all taxes, that's all stupid. But the idea is that you pay this massive tax. Now, what happens is if you have this beautiful mansion in England, oh, look at this lovely manor house, with the little trees and everything like that, and they say this is worth 100 million, okay, and you die. And that tax is now, let's say, 10% for sake reasons. So it's 10 million that you now owe the government. But you don't have 10 million pounds or 10 million rand worth of cash just lying around. All you have, or all you've been left in the will, is this mansion. But now to try and sell this mansion for 100 million or its market value is going to take time. And the taxman's putting a lot of pressure on you. So some people end up selling this mansion for, say, 20 million, giving half to the taxman, and then just having 10 million and losing the family's estate. So what people do is they'll put the mansion before they die into a trust so that when they do die, they avoid the death tax. And that's the problem with tax, is that it can always be avoided, hence why there's all these extra regulations and tax rules, and it becomes this massive headache for everyone. But it's one of the ways is to set up a trust to avoid death tax. I mean, so this is something that's been recently changed in South Africa, but another thing that people used trust for was tax planning. So listen to how dumb this was. What we had is that you got taxed at a certain rate if you received a certain amount of money. So I think in South Africa it's something around 40% at the highest income bracket. So you're making money, you're getting taxed at 40%. However, if you set up a trust and you put all your assets into the trust and you make yourself the beneficiary, or you make your kids or something like that, then the tax rules were like just 20%. So just by setting up a piece of paper, just setting up some sort of contract, some legal entity, you've halved your tax bill. And this undermines the whole thing of taxing. The whole idea is, we're going to tax the rich and feed the poor. But now, if the rich have got enough financial sophistication to set up these legal contracts or these trust documents, they could avoid tax and undermine the whole government socialist policies. So what governments do now is trusts are taxed at the maximum, which kind of defeats the purpose of having a trust for all these other reasons, and people now have to set up other types of special purpose vehicles, and it gets very, very confusing. But one of the reasons for setting up a trust was to beat the tax man at his own game. And sometimes it was done intentionally. Governments would say to the rich, look, we're going to put on this big tax for show. That's where we're going to get people to vote for us. Yeah, hate the rich, hate the rich. But don't worry, we'll have this little loophole for you guys where you can have your little trust and you don't actually have to pay that much tax, but it's good marketing for us to see that we are punishing the rich for being rich. So it does get very, very political, and conspiracy theories can pop up around tax planning and trust and all that. Another one is around corporate structures. So when you start looking at financials of companies, you start getting quite confused because not all the company is held within one legal entity. There's a group holding, there's there's the charity trust, there's there's that, there's this. And what they use trusts within corporate structures. It does make it quite complicated. That's why when you want to buy another company or there is a merger, it takes so long, it requires so many people because trusts make it complicated. And the reason why they have these corporate structures is for some sort of tax planning. It is so that there can be some privacy. They do use it for a bunch of reasons, but some corporations do use trusts in the structuring of their business. I mean, one of the big key reasons for also setting up a trust is asset protection. So what I can do is I can go and set up a trust and put a lot of my assets in this trust. Then what I can do is I can engage in business activities or, take up a loan and all that type of stuff. If my business fails and I have to be liquidated and I have to pay everybody back their money, the assets I put in the trust are protected. So they can come in, they can take my house, they can take my car, and I can turn around and say, no, 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 you actually can't take the house because I don't own the house. The trust owns the house, and that's different from me. So I can go out all big and I can hide collateral in a trust entity. And that way I can protect my assets from creditors and can make a bankrupt remote. This is very similar to how we see special purpose vehicles being used with securitization and credit linked notes and all that other financial gibberish stuff that really does make the subject quite confusing to new time people. I mean, another reason for setting up a trust could be for, say, co-ownership. Co-ownership is kind of the idea, like let's say you get married, you decide to put all your money together into a trust, or you buy property with a friend. A trust could be a better vehicle than setting up a whole partnership agreement because it might be a little bit more strict rules. But the whole idea is that trust can be used for co-ownerships. Another reason for setting up a trust is if you want to start a charity. You can say that the beneficiaries are the poor children in your town. You can give your assets. You can get people to be the protectors, and you can manage a charity to be through the whole trust structure. But again, it does depend on what country you are. Some countries might say no, that's dodgy. Others might allow it. I mean, we do even see financial trusts being set up. And I mean, a lot of people say, well, are these really trusts? But financial trusts, these are things like unit trusts, pension plans, remuneration trusts. This is when you set up a trust as some sort of investment vehicle. It gets around certain tax laws, it gets around certain regulations. It does get a little bit complicated. And like I said, it does very much depend on what country you're under, because each country might have its different rules and regulations around financial trusts. And then finally, you can set up a trust in some sort of service delivery industries. So what do I mean by that, service delivery? So let's say I am a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. I think in Canada they even have it with construction workers. But the idea is that I'm a lawyer. I'm going to help you out for your divorce or whatever you're going to do. You need to pay me legal fees. But I don't want to do the work and then you don't actually have the money to pay me. It's a waste of my time. There's all this bad debt, counterparty risk, all that type of stuff. So what the lawyer will say is set up a trust. And then what you will do is you will pay the money into the trust. And then the lawyer will only take the money out of the trust as he does his work. Same with the construction person. If the lawyer then stops doing his work, you can then recall your money from the trust. It's some sort of mechanism to facilitate, the payment of a service that's done over a long duration of time. But yeah, I mean, Those are the 10 top reasons for setting up a trust. Depending on the rules and regulations, there might be other reasons to try and, exploit loopholes and stuff like that. But essentially, a trust has got is a contract between three big parties. One's giving the assets, one controls them, and one benefits from them. And there we go. That is trust law. But like I said, it does change quite often. We've seen with South Africa, the tax planning has changed, and it is something that we could expect more changes to be made as more loopholes are exploited. But there we go. That's trust law. Thanks guys so much for watching, and yeah, hit subscribe and check out some more videos. I am busy making a whole bunch on regulation and all that, so if it is interesting you, or it is something that you have to study for your test, make sure you watch the future upcoming ones. Cheers.